Major pentatonic is one of the first scales musicians tend to learn, and probably the most frequently used scale in major key music, both for instrumentalists and vocalists. But for guitarists, memorizing its fingering pattern on the neck is only a small part of learning the scale. What's often missing from guitar lessons is a clear process for learning how to apply the scale musically and intuitively, laying the all-important foundations for your improvisation and composition skills. Whether or not you're already familiar with major pentatonic, this series of lessons will offer you a more practical and musically coherent way to master the scale. First, some basic theory to help us understand where the scale comes from. It's recommended, but not essential, so if you want to skip this part, use the link shown in the video. As the name suggests, major pentatonic is a major scale consisting of just 5 tones. As you may already know, the musical alphabet consists of 12 notes in total, which can be expressed as numerical intervals. Don't worry about the sharp and flat intervals right now, as we won't be using them. A pentatonic scale only uses 5 of the 12 tones that exist on guitar to create the scale. For major pentatonic, these 5 tones are the 1 or root, a major second, a major third, a perfect fifth, and a major sixth. The root of the scale determines the note we indicate before the scale name. So if the root was the note C, we'd be playing C major pentatonic. If the root was E, we'd be playing E major pentatonic, and so on. While a change of root changes the overall pitch of the scale, the distance or relationship between the scale's tones remains unchanged. It's this fixed relationship between the tones, no matter what root we start on, that gives the scale its unique sound. The root is also important for corresponding the scale to a backing chord or key. So if the key of the song was C major, for example, we might play C major pentatonic. If we were just playing over a single chord of C major, or even just a bass note of C, again, C major pentatonic would be a fine choice. The root of the scale corresponds to the root of the backing chord, note, or key. All the other tones that make up the scale follow in a fixed sequence from there. So what makes major pentatonic a major scale? The presence of a major third and perfect fifth, which, along with the root, make up what is known as a major triad. Play the root, third and fifth together and you get a major chord. So this major chord can be seen as the root chord of the scale and tells us the quality of the scale. Most scales contain a triad like this, whether major, minor, diminished or augmented. When forming a scale pattern on the neck, it's easiest to start by locating the root on the 6th string. In this example, we'll be playing C major pentatonic, so first we need to find C on the 6th string. We can now build our first pattern from this root position. As you can see, this pattern spans 2 octaves. That means as well as the 6th string root, we have 2 higher roots on the 3rd and 1st strings. The sequence from 6th string root to 3rd string root is exactly the same 5 notes as from the 3rd to 1st string roots. They're just an octave apart. Start by memorizing these root positions within the pattern. The 1st string root is easy to memorize because it's always on the same fret as the 6th string root. The 3rd string root can be seen as 3 frets down from those root positions. The root positions provide visual reference points for where your scale begins. As you can see, when we move to a different root, the pattern moves in its fixed formation to that new position. In other words, the pattern is movable. Moving back to C, and referring back to those root positions, we're going to try some simple exercises that end on the root. This will train you to locate them within a musical sequence. Start by playing linear sequences from root to root, making sure you emphasize each root as a resting note. You might want to use a metronome to help keep good timing and build your speed. There are many free online metronomes you can use. Once you're confident with locating the root in a straight sequence, try playing simple 3-note phrases from the scale that resolve on a root. So we'd have 2 lead-up notes and the root as the landing note. The lead-up notes could be any 2 notes you want and don't have to follow a straight sequence. Just try different approaches to one of the 3 root positions. To make this more musical, we'll be playing to a C major chord track, which you can download on the lesson page, along with other chord tracks. Here are some examples. Note that you might have to adjust your fingering for some movements, but I'll show you the suggested fingering on the diagram in the top right corner. Now try adding another note to the lead up. It doesn't matter if you include the root in your lead up sequence, as long as you're targeting one of the root positions at the end of the phrase. The reason we're focusing on the root is because it's a strong target note to use in the scale, as it corresponds to the root of the backing chord and the tonic chord of the key. So when you're moving around the scale, the root provides a safe resolution point for your phrases. Another important note in the scale is the third, as it corresponds to the third of the backing chord. Again, we can use the same memorization exercise with the third positions on the A and B strings. Once again, play through some simple sequences that resolve to the third and hear how they lock the phrase into that C major backing chord. Finally, the fifth of the scale, as it corresponds to the fifth of the C major backing chord. Another good target note to memorize within the pattern. Use exactly the same process you did with the root and third. All we've been doing so far is playing over a single chord, but we'll eventually get to playing through chord changes, which will involve us having to change our target notes within the pattern. What we've done here is an important first step in learning to target notes around the chord you're playing over. In fact, you can see how the chord appears in the scale pattern. You can theoretically pick out related chord shapes from the scale pattern in this way. With practice, you'll be able to string together simple yet meaningful phrases that give your scale movements a sense of melodic purpose. You can find exercises with tabs to help with this, plus backing tracks for different roots on the lesson page. You'll also find diagrams showing you how to extend the pattern we've looked at and use more of the fretboard. Until the next part, keep practicing the exercises we've looked at and explore the scale in as many ways as you can. Cheers.